2023's free agency is basically over. There are a few stragglers waiting to sign, and of course, the major one is that Boston's Jaylen Brown has yet to sign his extension, so that is very much up in the air. But I figure enough has happened. We can sit here and talk about what these signings look like, and I'm going to grade every single pretty much major signing that happened, anything that I feel is of significant note, and I'm going to go team by team. So yeah, let's get into it. Real quick before I get into this, drop a like. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. And subscribe for 3 NBA videos a week. Also, go subscribe to my second channel where I am uploading daily, just whatever the hell is happening. It's very, stream of consciousness. But if you like hearing me talk, there's more of it there. Now going into this, I do want to say that how I grade is kind of relative to the circumstance and the need of these teams. Like, if a team has no cap space, I'm not going to really knock them for not signing major free agents. And if a team does have cap space and they do nothing with it or make bad signings, I will give them crap for that. So you get the idea. Also, some teams didn't really need a big signing. Some teams did. So it's just really a case-by-case basis. So bear that in mind relative to what I think these teams needed to do. That's where these grades are coming from. And I just want to start out of the gate with the kind of obvious one that everyone's been clowning on, and that is the Houston thing. I particularly just want to bring it up right at the front because it is by far the most funny. Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks for all that money is something. Now, I'm not going to go in too much depth because I covered this over on my second channel, again, Stream of Consciousness. So if you want to hear more elaborate thoughts, you're free to do that. Maybe Rudy will put a link in here somewhere, but probably not. But yeah, that much money for those two, not good. However, I will say that it doesn't matter too much in the long run for Houston. Like, this is a matter of the circumstance of how consequential does it really end up being. Like, I don't think it's a huge deal for Houston that Fred VanVleet will make a bunch of money over the next 2 years when they're not paying anybody anyways. I think Dillon's is a 3+1, and like even 3 years from now, Houston's not really going to be paying people like that. So it's not like they're keeping money out of people's pockets that they could be spending on other players. Sure, I think there's an argument to be made they could have diversified and not just blown all of their money on these two guys in particular, but I think overall it was some weird stuff. Their offseason was weird more than anything else, but Houston did improve, so there is that. I would personally give the Dillon Brooks signing like a D+. Like, that's me being nice and not having it be an F. But other than that, I'll probably give them a C+. Again, I elaborated on this more in the second channel video, so watch that. I don't even remember why I wanted to headline with Houston as I'm reading this, but whatever. Now let's get into the East. For Milwaukee, I love the Malik Beasley signing. I think this will be viewed as one of the most significant steals of free agency. I think he could be a huge contributor for them. Oh, and they also re-signed Chris Middleton to like all of the money, which is maybe like 5% too much, but like who really cares? They also brought back Brooke Lopez. I'll give them an A, honestly. I mean, all you really needed to do was bring in some more shooting, which is something I talked about where Milwaukee's shooting is good until it's not. And someone like Malik for basically no money, that's a guy who can shoot the hell out of the ball and really help you in that department. And then you brought back your core pieces, and they're really old, so I don't know how much longer it's going to be good to have them on the money you have them on, but you obviously got to keep checking that box until they're no longer providing, and they did that. The Celtics signed 2 younger guys who have some upside. Banton, who was interesting as a tall defensive-minded point in small spurts for Toronto, being a 6'9" point guard, but he can't shoot worth shit, so that's worthy of note. And O'Shea Brissett actually had some real moments for Indiana. He could actually be a guy sooner rather than later. It's cool. In context, they really didn't need any major signings, so I'll give them a B. Patrick Beverley to Philly is fine, but overall, they have been halted from doing anything with the Harden stuff impending. So honestly, I feel kind of bad even judging them. They also did lose Jalen McDaniels, which hurts a little bit. It'd be cool if they signed someone like PJ Washington, but as of right now, I don't feel right judging the Sixers because, again, the Harden thing has created just complete, what do you call that shit? Deadlock or whatever. The Cavaliers brought back Caris LeVert on a fair deal, even though I'm not his biggest fan. And they addressed their forward issues, I think, with Max Strus and Georgius Niang. Both are great three-point shooters, which is what they were desperately in need of at that position. Both playoff rotation guys. Hopefully they can hold up defensively. I would give them an A, honestly. I think they've had a pretty damn good offseason. The Knicks signed Dante DiVincenzo, a pretty good role guy for a pretty good role guy price. Gives you an option if Quentin Grimes is stinking it up again like he did in the playoffs this year. I still believe in Quentin, by the way, but, it's nice to have backup options. But, I don't know. I give it a B. It's cool. For the Nets, I think Cameron Johnson got a bit too much. Don't get me wrong. Cam, when he's there, is worth about $27 million these days. That's very good role player price, and that's what Cam is. But he's not there enough. He has missed 27% of his team's games so far in his career. He missed 40 last year. Dude is just injury prone. So, yeah, he needs to not be that for me to justify that contract. And to this point, he hasn't proven to not be injury prone. But, maybe he just has a great hit of luck from here on. Who knows? They also signed Dennis Smith Jr. and Lonnie Walker. Those are both cool enough moves, but don't really move the needle. Overall, I got to give them like a C+, because again, that's a lot of money for Cam, man. The Hawks have not made a signing. Miami added Josh Richardson as well as Thomas Bryant. Josh can definitely be a rotation guy in the playoffs, so for them, that's a great pickup. I would give them a B+. The Raptors brought back Jakob Poeltl on a fair deal. Dennis Schroeder as your Fred VanVleet replacement stinks, though. You replace your highest volume and one of your best percentage three-point shooters in Fred for a guy who shoots very poorly with regularity from three. He's had his moments of being positive, and I think he's been more good than bad lately, but a very, very streaky three-point shooter, Dennis is. So that's an L. Jalen McDaniels is a cool signing as well. He's an underrated role player, I would say, but I would just give them like a C for can you please fucking do something, Toronto. How many years does Masai Ujiri get to be considered a good executive while not actually doing anything? I'm curious. The Bulls made two signings that I like in a vacuum. If I made a top 10 underrated free agents list, I'm actually quite confident both Javon Carter and Torrey Craig would have made that list. Cheap 3-and-D guys are always good. It's about as good as it gets in terms of value contracts, and they're both that. I think this helps them go from the 10th seed to the 8th seed. Yippee. I don't give a shit. Honestly, I'm going to give them an F out of pure pettiness because I don't think this offseason should even remotely look the way it does. Sure, if you're trying to be competitive, these are good moves. Trying to be competitive when you're this team is stupid. So, fuck you, Chicago. I feel like someone's going to watch this not knowing I'm a Bulls fan and think I'm just have a unreasonable vendetta. I might, though. The Pacers signed Bruce Bowen, and I like that move a lot. Bruce is a perfect play finisher, naturally fits in perfect at guard next to their playmaker, Tyrese Halliburton. They also, of course, extended Tyrese Halliburton to an insane amount of money, and Tyrese was born on the same day as me, actually, and he recently signed a $250 million contract. So we've had the same amount of time. I wonder who did more with it. I would give the Pacers an A for their offseason personally, and I think there's a good chance they're a fun league pass team. The Wizards brought back Kuz on a fair deal. I don't know what their plan is long term with him, but, a tradable contract for a pretty good player on a rebuilding team is nice to have. You can get some sort of assets out of it in the long run, and, just have Kuz be the staple of, being bad, but you know, at least someone's scoring the ball. He can provide value in that regard as well. I would like to see them throw some contracts at some young guys, but otherwise I'll give Washington a B+. Orlando signed Joe Ingles as well as brought back Mo Wagner. And, you know, Mo is a pretty good backup center. And Joe is old as dirt, but was pretty good for the Bucks last year. So I'll go with like a B, maybe a B-. Charlotte brought back Miles Bridges, which gets an F for fuck you, grow a backbone. Detroit did nothing, and that ends the East. Now on to the West, where, of course, Denver lost Bruce Brown, and it's a very sad day. They also brought back Reggie Jackson on actual money, which really confuses me. He was bad for them and does not fit their system in the slightest. And actually, Justin Holiday is a pretty good pickup. Could maybe even crack a playoff rotation at times. But overall, this was an L of a free agency because they could not bring back Bruce. But it was also kind of impossible to avoid. But ultimately, I'm going with a D+. They also lost Jeff Green. Just not a lot of good stuff. And the Reggie Jackson thing completely confuses me. Like, why is he back on that team? The Grizzlies no longer have Dylan Brooks, which is, of course, addition by subtraction. And they also signed Derrick Rose, which I think is cool and perhaps necessary given the 25-game suspension the Grizzlies need a third-string point guard for. The Kings brought back Alex Len as well as Trey Lyles, two really good team-friendly deals, and I think both of them were well worth it and pretty good contributors for them, so good on them for that. They also extended Harrison Barnes for probably a lot more money and more years than I'm really comfortable with, especially given just how not good he was in this year's postseason, so overall I'm going to give them a C+. Now, I've officially earned the reputation as a Phoenix Suns hater, but I cannot lie, I actually kind of liked their offseason quite a bit, all things considered, and again, the grades here are based on all things considered. So I'm actually going to give them an A+. I think they got a couple of guys that can genuinely be rotation guys in the playoffs. Guys like Eric Gordon, Drew Eubanks, as well as, where is his name? Yuta Watanabe, who is like a laser on corner threes, which means it's impossible to double the guy, to leave the guy open when obviously you want to be able to throw double teams when you have Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant on the floor. So having a guy that just a defender has to be glued to, that really helps. I think they did what they could with what they have, but the roster is definitely still stretched far too thin and not good enough defensively to move me. But an A, offseason, A+ even for them for sure, or free agency. The Clippers brought back Mason Plumlee and Russell Westbrook on good deals. They lost Eric Gordon, but honestly, he felt redundant with Norman Powell. I would probably give them a B- here. There's a good chance that Russ contract looks like one of the highest value contracts in the league if he continues to be as good as he was for LA. The Dubs brought back Draymond on a solid deal, but Corey Joseph being your only other addition when depth was a very clear issue for you in this year's postseason. And mind you, you just traded for a point guard in Chris Paul, so why are you signing a point guard as your major addition? It's an L of an offseason, I think, for the Warriors. They have not addressed their real problems. I don't think Jordan Poole for Chris Paul is just some immediate addition by subtraction plus Chris Paul's leadership equals championship. Like, I think that team's still far away from being a legit contender. I do leave room for the hope that they signed like PJ Washington. The Lakers had a great offseason. They brought back D'Lo, Reeves, and Rui. D'Lo, I think, slightly overpaid, but the other two, especially Austin, those two are on great deals. I also really like the additions of Gabe Vincent and Taurean Prince. There's even some potential there with Jackson Hayes and Cam Reddish. Ultimately, I think they filled out the roster well in the spots that they had holes and brought back the guys they needed to bring back on good money. So, yeah, absolutely great offseason for LA. Another one that I will elaborate on, but I think that's in a video that comes out tomorrow. I do not care for Minnesota's offseason. I do not think much of DeAnthony Melton or Troy Brown Jr., and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I just do not think is good. He was really bad for them in the playoffs. I would give them like a D+. The Pelicans brought back Herb Jones on a fair amount of money, but it also locks them in for several years. And I do think that amount of money 3 years from now is going to look like a complete steal. So for that, I think I would give them a B+ in that regard. They haven't really done anything else, but that's a big deal. OKC did not make a notable signing, nor did the Utah Jazz. And the Blazers brought back Jeremy Grant on a big old contract. I think many are overreacting to this deal, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's like what he's worth. Like, fair and square, he's definitely not making more money than he probably reasonably should, because he definitely is. But it's not that big of an overpay in the context of what money is today, which I think a lot of people just don't take into consideration. And I think, you know, 2 years from now, when that's like a 3+1 or a 2+1, it'll look, 2+1. It'll look much more like a tradable contract, especially with the salary cap going up, and they could actually get genuine value, which is better than losing him for nothing. Also, it wouldn't be bad for Scoot Henderson just to have like a pretty solid 4 to just have around, you know, just veteran stuff. Hashtag just veteran things. We previously discussed the Rockets, and San Antonio brought back Tre Jones, which is cool. I am concerned about how bad his 3-ball has been in the NBA, but otherwise Tre looks pretty good to me. Best Tre in the NBA, 100%. I'd give them like a B. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and that is it. Goodbye.